Hello, Jay Srimataji. Welcome to Blossoming Children, a channel created to support yogi parents who are raising children all ages. And today I am absolutely excited, delighted to have a conversation with a young Yuva and learn from his perspective and his wisdom. Kabir, welcome to Blossoming Children.
Thank you, Jeshra Mataji. My name is Kabir, and I'm 14 years old. I'm in ninth grade this year, and I live in Tupelo, Mississippi, in United States.
Welcome, Kabir. I'm so glad that you are joining us and you are 9 years old. What else can you tell us about yourself? You're not 9 years old, you're in the ninth grade. My mistake. Okay. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, yeah, so I have been in Sahaj Yoga since my birth. I was born into Sahaj Yoga. And yeah, I live with my family, which is my mother, my father. I have a brother, and we have a dog, and our grandparents live with us.
Great. And what's your dog's name? I'm a dog person too. I have two dogs here.
Her name is Tara.
Oh, and is Tara a puppy or is she a grown up dog?
She's a puppy. She actually turned a year old a few months ago.
Oh, sweet, sweet. Ours are older. I think puppies are just awesome. So you mentioned you've been raised in Sahaja Yoga, and which leads me to the question: how does meditation help you with studying or with friends or relationships? How does that show up in your life?
So I think like differently from some people, I've always had Sej Yoga, so I've never felt what it's like to not have the presence of Sej Yoga in my life. So I can't necessarily compare that, but I do know that like when there's some days when I meditate less or I don't go as deep, maybe I just sit down in front of Shramataji and then walk away, continue with the day. If I don't really meditate, then it feels like I've missed something. And so like meditation is a core part of my life at this stage. So as a result, yeah, I feel like Sahaj Yoga is very much in there in my life. And regarding studies, as you said, I think I actively use Sahaj Yoga in my studying. So for example, if I need to like I learn Latin, and when you're learning a language, you need to memorize a lot of vocabulary, right? So for those kinds of memory things, I try to pray to Sri Ganesha, who is the Lord of Memory, and pray that please let me memorize this and remember this.
Yes, that's a good tip, isn't it? Using the deities with the qualities that so that we can imbibe those is such a good way. Have you found it has also helped you in terms of relationships with others or getting to know yourself better? What would you say? I know Surge Yoga has been part of your life, so it's hard to imagine life without it. But are there aspects of it that lend themselves that you feel like, okay, this is really helping me because of this, I can do this?
Yeah, so I think like I've seen from my experience or from what people say about me, I think I'm like the kind of person who likes to talk to people, meet new people, make friends, and I feel like like that kind of bit in my personality is really just due to Sahaj Yoga because having Sahaj Yoga kind of gives me that self-confidence so that I'm not like the kind of person who's shy generally. Like I like to meet new people, talk to people, and just I also enjoy like helping people, right? If somebody has a math problem that they're struggling with and they come to me for help, it makes me feel good to help them. And that I feel like is a personality trait that's just completely from Sahaj Yoga.
I think that's really well put that, it gives you confidence and it gives you qualities of empathy and compassion, which are definitely qualities that come from our Nabhi. So the heart is strong, the Nabhi is strong, the memory is coming from Muladhara, which is, it clearly tells me that you're using it as a tool and it's not a separate thing just to meditate. It's very much part of your life. Walk us through your daily routine of how you meditate or how you find time to meditate, because quite often the excuse I hear from young people is it may be boring, I don't have time, I don't see the benefit for it. What would you say to someone listening that is in that space, and how and why should they do this?
So I feel like for me, well, the why part I feel like is more in like the benefits of meditation that you receive. But for the how part, I would say for me, it's just part of my morning routine. Like you brush your teeth, you get ready. Similarly, like especially recently, we've been trying to make an active effort to make it the very first thing you do. As soon as you get up, we go down to the meditation room downstairs as a family, meditate. And that meditation can take any form. It can be like, depending on how much time we have, maybe just sitting there for 5, 10 minutes, trying to go inside ourselves, or listening to Shamaji's talk for half an hour. It just depends, right? It varies from day to day. But otherwise, just making that a part of your morning routine. And if you've meditated first thing in the morning, in my experience, then the rest of the day just goes well. And then regarding evening meditation, that I think like there's definitely times when I have not found the time to necessarily meditate in the evening every day, but I try to do it as much as possible. And like if I was not able to meditate today, I'll make sure that I meditate tomorrow.
You're holding yourself accountable. And I like that you're being honest and transparent and saying, time is a factor and you create time for it. You want to do it because you're enjoying it, because it brings you joy. I think maybe is what I understood you saying, because you like it. So you want to do it more. So, yeah. And can you think of some things that maybe your parents have done for you throughout your growing up that you really appreciate, that you really felt like have helped you, supported you, and that you might feel that, other children might benefit if their parents did this for them?
Yeah, I mean, my parents have done everything for me. So, like, and I appreciate almost all of that. But, like, I guess if you asked me to take out one thing that they have done in their lives major that really helped me, apart from just like being Sahaj yogis and raising me as a Sahaj yogi, that's of course a very big thing. But in addition to that, I think so. I've been homeschooled until or through sixth grade. So that's for half of my school education. I was homeschooled. I was taught by my parents, mostly my mother, who taught me everything, all the subjects. And so I'm not saying that every parent should necessarily have to pull their child out of school. That's not necessary. But I think the amazing thing that I took away from homeschooling that I would never have gotten anywhere else is that, like, no matter what we were doing, what you're reading, if it's science, like some kind of a book from history, like my mother would just try to put everything into a Sahaj perspective. That's it. Like try to pull out the Sahaj lessons or ask me to pull out the Sahaj lessons and tell me what are the things that we should take away from this, right? As a Sahaj yogi, what should we learn from this? From every single thing, how does a Sahaj yogi view this? And I feel like just having that in my upbringing, having the Sahaj perspective on everything be so core to my growing up experience really helped a lot.
Could you give us an example of something you were reading and your mom said, what would be a Sahajogi perspective? Give us an example.
Okay, so I guess the first thing that just came to mind was Aesop's Fables. I think you know,
Yes.
yeah, where they have those stories. So I think like those are definitely like stories that have morals each time. And I think we used to read some of those in school. We used to talk about what like what morals are in each of them. But actually, you know, an even better example I just thought of was there was a book that we read about there's like this kid who is a really good kid, good in heart, but then he falls in with some not so great men and he starts gambling and drinking. And so we talked about how like how that's not good and what I would have done if I was in that kid's shoes. And so that's I think more the kind of thing that made it all really unique.
I think that's really an amazing quality. And your mom was doing it so gradually and naturally, helping you to have critical thinking skills and problem solving skills and, perspective taking skills. And she was just raising you with that, mindset, and I think that there's so much value in that. Um, so I had heard that you had done a science experiment when you were back in fifth grade. First of all, do you remember that? You do. You're
Yeah.
not. Okay, you do remember. What made you pick that science experiment? Tell us what it was, what made you pick it, what was your hypothesis, and were you correct or were you surprised with the results? So, yeah, take us back to fifth grade. Why did you pick that and what was it about?
Okay, so that was not my first science fair project. I'd done a lot of science fair projects. So, but like all throughout, I think like I kind of always wanted to do something for Sahaj Yoga. And like I have read so many papers and even met people who have done these kinds of projects where they take Sahaj Yoga and try to prove how Sahaj Yoga is helpful to the body from a scientific perspective, because of course from a spiritual perspective we know it, but for other people, like, to approach it scientifically, it's helpful to show them the data, right? And for that you have to create data, you have to carry out some experiments. And one of the things that I noticed when looking over these with my father was that nobody really ever did experiments on children specifically. And so, like, one of the things that I wrote in my science paper was that a lot of people seem to think that kids are free from stress, especially young kids. And so, as a result, meditation doesn't affect them or isn't necessary. But I tried to show that, like, maybe that's not necessarily the case, and meditation really does make a difference. So, what I did was I reached
Uh,
out.
Let me just pause you for 1 minute. So, just to clarify, your science experiment was focused on children, understanding that they do go through stress, and how does meditation alleviate the stress and reduce the stress? Am I understanding it correctly? Okay.
Yes, exactly. So I reached out to 12 children who I knew and asked them all to come to my house 5 days in a row. And for each day, just like for 10 to 15 minutes is all it was, I think. Just asked them to sit down. First, I think I measured blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, things like that. Before and after the meditation. So first I took those measurements, then I asked them to so I sort of led them through a variation of the same guided meditation technique that Srimataji always uses in the self-realization programs. I didn't do it exactly the same because I thought it might be harder for the children to understand, but I changed it a little bit, but kept it mostly similar. And
Okay.
so I took them through that 5 days in a row, all throughout. And I essentially tried to see what was the difference that was made both mentally. So I asked them to fill out a survey for something called perceived stress score, which is essentially a way of rating how stressed out you are. So I asked them to do that before the
And what
5 days
did
and
the
at the very
survey, um,
end.
1 second, what did the survey include? Like, what types of questions were they answering?
So I think the questions from what I can remember were mostly just about like maybe I feel very stressed out due to school, true
Okay.
or false, etc., like that.
Okay. Open ended.
Yeah. And so I tried to see like what kind of difference was made by the meditation, right? And I mean, my hypothesis here was like, as I said, yogi, I was sure that there's going to be some difference. It has to be a positive difference. So that was my hypothesis. But still, I don't think like, I mean, I think that I was a little bit surprised, very pleasantly surprised, but still happy, but also surprised to see like maybe just the extent to which there was a difference. So like the results that I came away with were actually really like a huge, is a very significant difference, a positive difference.
So
So
you were measuring them before and after for blood pressure, heart rate, and temperature. If you break that down, did all of them improve? Did the numbers before and after change dramatically for all these three indicators?
So it wasn't like there were outliers, I guess you could say. It wasn't all perfect data, but if you look at the overall or the average, um compared to before and after, the blood pressure went down, the heart rate went down, and the skin temperature grew colder. So I tested the temperature on the hands. So essentially, if the skin temperature grew colder, that means there were vibrations flowing.
Nice. And what did your friends think of this? Had they done something similar before? Had they meditated before? What
Yeah,
did
actually, so I asked them also at that same point to fill out like just if they want to add comments, like what did they think of this experience? How did they feel? And I was just reading over that. Like one of them said that I think what he said was I felt calm and relaxed for the first time in my life. Um,
wow.
it felt like my mind was not racing. There were no thoughts in my head. So that felt really good to see.
And how, remind us again, how old were the friends of yours?
They were in elementary and middle school, so I guess you could say ranging from, I think the youngest was my brother, who was 6 years old at the time, I want to say,
Okay.
and the oldest was probably 12-ish.
And one of these children said that this was the first time they felt calm in their life.
Yes, actually not one, I think multiple.
Wow, that is actually very interesting to me that being between 6 and 12 and not feeling the calm at all, those are quite a few number of years. And to live with that much stress when you're that little. So I know you did this experiment and you had the friends over to do this. Have you talked to your other friends about meditation? And what do you say to them if you introduce it to them? How do you introduce it to them?
Yeah, so now I attend a different high school. I'm not homeschooled anymore, unfortunately. But my friends at high school, I have mentioned meditation to them, and so like I have a close circle of 10 friends, and in that group, everybody knows that I do meditate. They know that I've been meditating since birth, that both of my parents meditate. But I've never really talked about Sahaj Yoga itself by name or asked any of them to come for self-realization. But I mean, if anybody was interested, I would definitely do that. But for now, I just like try to keep everybody so that they know that this person meditates and try to use my personality to reflect that, like how would a good Sahaj Yogi behave, right? And try to just be that Sahaj Yogi for everybody else to see.
Yeah, so you're living by example, you're leading by example, and you're hoping that the influence around you will be inspiring to them, and they would like to know more. They can find out from you. I
Yeah.
also
And
go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
I would say that I don't like I'm definitely don't succeed at this all the time. Like I'm not a perfect person at
As
all.
none of us are. Thank you for saying that.
I mean, I mess up, I've made mistakes, but I just try to always yeah, fix and move on.
But that's a valid point too. So these conversations are not about perfection. These conversations are not about leading or pretending to be a perfect person. These conversations are about sharing life experiences. These conversations are about how do we apply it to our life? How is it helping our life? And just be inspiring and motivating. So you were nodding. Yeah. um, I also know that you've written some book, one book or more than one book. Tell us about that too.
Oh no, it was only one book. So actually, this also happened when I was in fifth grade. So around the same year, I wrote like it was really just a school assignment, but like I said, it was homeschool, so I could really write anything. So I wrote a poem about the solar system, but I tried to. So the original thought was just to personify them because that was something that we were learning about. But then I talked with my mother, and it became why not? Like we already have personifications because we already know that the chakras represent. I mean, the planets represent chakras, which have their own qualities. So why don't I put that into text, right? And in a form that maybe non-Sahaj yogis can also see it and learn from it, without necessarily having to be in Sahaj yoga.
And what is the name of this book? And do you have it? Do you want to hold it up so that people can find it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have a copy with me right now, but
That's fine.
it's called The Children of the Sun.
The Children of the Sun. And actually, there's a YouTube video for it because I watched it with our granddaughter and we loved it. So we really enjoyed it. She enjoys it. She's 8 and she enjoyed it. So thank you for being an author and writing it.
Yes, I think it was a very amazing experience. Like, I mean, I talked to people about like how it is to write it, but then also to write it from a Sahaj perspective was definitely a very nice thing because it gave me like a kind of thing that, okay, I've done this and I've helped people in this way, hopefully.
Sure, yeah. I think it's really nice when we can align the universe, the stones, and the planets to what's happening inside us. I think it's really good to create a correlation with it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, what advice, words of wisdom would you share with other children, other yuvas who are younger than you, same age as you, who are coming behind you, and what would you say to them with words of wisdom, inspiration, motivation? What would you like to share with them?
I feel like if I had to say something to them or maybe even like to a younger version of myself, the maybe one of the main things I would say is that like when I was younger, I didn't necessarily always like appreciate everything that my parents did. Like for example, I got pretty tired of trying to pick out morals from every single story, but looking back, that's what gave me the foundation. Like my parents are what gave me everything. So I would definitely tell myself to value that more and like while I have it to actually take it. It's an opportunity that I'm not going to get again once I grow up.
That is so nice. That's really nice that, appreciate parents more when you're younger because it's true, age teaches us to appreciate our parents more. What advice would you give to parents? What should they keep in mind as they're raising children? I know you shared some qualities that your parents instilled in you, but if there's a parent listening right now, what would you say from a child's perspective that parents should know this about a child or parents should keep this in mind of the young people in their life?
So, I mean, I am not a parent, so I don't necessarily feel qualified to completely like tell parents that you should do this. But that being
But
said,
it's a child's perspective. You see, it's your perspective. What would you want adults to know from a child's perspective?
yeah, I feel like if an adult sits with a child and tries to feel his or her vibrations, then they know all that there is to know, right? I guess the main thing is like, don't necessarily try to assume things about your child, but instead just go with the vibrations. Maybe the child knows something that we don't.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So assuming is a really good quality. Don't assume. Maybe talk to them, maybe ask them, maybe, hear their perspective, check their vibrations to know what's coming from inside so that, you can get to the core of it if there's a problem. Well, it has been a joy and a pleasure to connect with you. You are welcome anytime. Come back anytime.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you for being a part of this. And again, to those listening, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you'll get the alerts when the new videos are uploaded. This is a channel created for yogi parents. It's not for seeker parents. We're having honest conversations from our perspectives. It's not perfection. It's not a doctrine. It's just life experiences shared from a wide perspective and wide different lens. So thank you, Kabir, for being here. And may your light shine bright and may you always be an instrument of Srimatiji's work and legacy.
Thank you so much. Jai Shri Mataji.
Yes, Srimatiji.